Hello class 9th, I am Ashok present here with part 2 video of the chapter In the Kingdom of Fools from Supplementary Reader Book Moments. In the previous video we read about kings and ministers of a kingdom who were fools and they passed in order to make the people walk at night time and rest during daytime. We read about saints and his disciples Bridget in the kingdom. We also read about the falling of wall on a thief at the time of stealing from the house of a merchant, and his brothers appealed to the king to give punishment to the merchant for making the weak wall that killed his brother. Now let's begin with the next part of the story. The dancing girl, now an old woman, came trembling to the court. Did you walk up and down the street many years ago while this poor man was building a wall? Did you see him? Yes, my lord, I remember it very well. So you did walk up and down with your anklets jingling. You were young and distracted him, so he built a bad ball. So, in this part of the text, we read that the dancing girl had become an old woman and she was trembling as she entered the court. The king asked her that many years ago was she dancing and roaming around in the lane while the bricklayer was constructing the wall. Her movement distracted him. She confirmed him. He told her that as she was roaming around with anklets jingling, it distracted the bricklayer, and due to this, he could not do his work properly. He built a wet ball. It has fallen on a poor burglar and killed him. So, this wall fallen on a poor burglar and killed him. The king announced that for this she was to be punished. She thought for a minute and said, my lord, wait, I know now why I was walking up and down that street. I had given some gold to the goldsmith to make some jewelry for me. He was a lazy scoundrel. He made so many excuses, said he would give it now and he would give it then, and so on all day. He made me walk up and down to his house a dozen times. That was when this bricklayer saw me. It's not my fault, my lord. It is the damned goldsmith's fault. So, in this part of the text, we read that the dancing girl transferred the blame onto another person. She said that she was roaming around in this lane again and again because she had to visit the goldsmith's shop. She had given some gold to him to make jewelry out of it. He was a dishonest person. He was making excuses for not making her ornaments in time. He kept on asking her to come after some time. Due to this, she had to go to his house at least a dozen times. So the dancing girl said that it was the fault of the goldsmith. Further, the dancing girl says that when the bricklayer saw her and got distracted, it was the fault of the goldsmith because of whom she was roaming in the lane again and again. Poor thing, she is absolutely right, thought the king. Weighing the evidence, we have got the real culprit at last. Get the goldsmith wherever he is hiding at once. So now the king says that the poor dancing girl was totally right. He thought a lot and finally said that now they knew who the real culprit was. He ordered to bring the goldsmith. The king's valet searched for the goldsmith who was hiding in a corner of a shop. When he heard the accusation against him, he had his own story to tell. So there are two words which may be difficult for you. Accusation means to blame someone. Valets means a law officer who makes sure that the decisions of a court are obeyed. So In this part of the text, we read that the bailiffs in the king's court went in search of the goldsmith and brought him to the court. The goldsmith was hiding inside his shop as he feared being arrested. When he was brought in front of the king, he told his side of the story. My lord, he said, I am a poor goldsmith. It's true, I made this dancer come many times to my door. I gave her excuses because I couldn't finish making her jewelry before I finished the rich merchant's order. They had a wedding coming and they wouldn't wait. You know how impatient rich men are. He said that the dancing girl was right. He made many excuses and made her visit his shop again and again, but it was not his fault. He had an order from a rich merchant and they had a wedding at their place and were in a hurry to get their order, and that is why the dancing girl's work was getting delayed. Then king asked the goldsmith, who is the rich merchant who kept you from finishing this poor woman's jewelry, made her walk up and down, which distracted this bricklayer, which made a mess of his wall, which has now fallen on an innocent man and killed him? Can you name him? The goldsmith named the merchant, and he was none other than the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. Now justice had come full circle. Thought the king back to the merchant when he was rudely summoned back to the court. He arrived crying, it wasn't me, but my father who ordered the jewelry. He is dead, I am innocent. So the king asked the goldsmith to name the rich merchant. The goldsmith said that the merchant was the same merchant whose house wall had fallen down. Just justice has come full circle means that the story ended at the same person from whom it had started. The thief died under the wall of the same merchant whose jewelry this goldsmith was making. Once again, the merchant was called. He was crying and he knew that the king was foolish and he would give him death sentence. He said that it was not he who had ordered the jewelry, but it was his father. His father was dead and it was none of his fault. But the king consulted his minister and ruled decisively, it's true, your father is the true murderer. He's dead, but somebody must be punished in his place. You have inherited everything from that criminal father of yours, his riches as well as his sins. I knew at once, even when I first set eyes on you, that you were at the root of this horrible crime. You must die. So the king consulted his minister and gave the decision that the merchant's father was the murderer. The thief died because of him, as the merchant's father was not alive and someone had to be punished for the crime. So he said that the merchant's son, who had inherited everything from his father, would have to take the punishment for the wrongdoing as well. He added that when he had seen the merchant for the first time, at that moment he had a feeling that he was the culprit. The king announced that now the merchant would have to die. And he ordered a new stake to be made ready for the execution. As the servant sharpened the stake and got it ready for the final impaling of the criminal, it occurred to the minister that the rich merchant was somehow too thin to be properly executed on the stake. He appealed to the king's common sense, that the king too worried about it. So Two or three words are there which are difficult for you. Stake. Stake means a post with a sharp pointed end used to pierce through something. Execution means an official killing of someone. Impaling means to push a sharp pointed post through something. Now, in this part of the text, we read that when this new weapon was getting ready, that is stake, the minister felt that the merchant was very thin and he could not be executed in this way. He told this to the king, and the king got worried. What shall we do? He said. Then suddenly it struck him that all they needed to do was to find a man fat enough to fit the stake. The servants were immediately sent all over the town looking for a man who would fit the stake, and their eyes fell on the disciple who had fattened himself for months on bananas and rice and wheat and geese. So the king got an idea that they should catch hold of a man who was fat enough to be executed with the stake. The merchant would not be put to death because he was too thin to be executed with a stake. They thought of punishing another person instead of the merchant, one who was fat enough to be executed with a stake. Finally, the king sent his servants around the kingdom to look for a man who was fat enough to be executed with the stake. They found the Guru's disciple who had become very fat because of overeating. Now, let's see the next part of the text. What have I done wrong? I am innocent. I am a sannyasi, he cried. That may be true. What it's the royal decree means order, that we should find a man fat enough to fit the stake. They set and carried him to the place of execution. He remembered his wise guru's words, this is the city of fools, you don't know what they will do next. While he was waiting for death, he prayed to his Guru in his heart, asking him to hear his cry wherever he was. The Guru saw everything in a vision. He had magic powers. He could see far and he could see the future as he could see the present and the past. He arrived at once to save his disciple who had got himself into such a scrape through love of food. So scrape word is there which may be difficult for you. Scrape means difficult situation that one has got into. The disciple said that he was a sannyasi, he had not done anything wrong, he was innocent, then why were they taking him? The king's servant said that he was innocent, what they were ordered to catch hold of a fat man who could be executed with the stake, and he was fit for it, and that is why they were taking him along. The disciple is reminded of his Guruji, who was a wise man, had told him that it was a city of fools and they could harm him. Now they were taking him along to execute him. The helpless disciple prayed to his Guru and asked him to come to his rescue. The Guru could visualize the disciple's message due to his magical power. He could see everything. He could see the future, the present, and the past. He could see everything in the vision. The Guru arrived there to save the disciple. The disciple was trapped in a difficult and serious situation. They were about to execute him, although he had not done anything wrong. So the Guru came to rescue him from this situation. Now let's read the next part. As soon as he arrived, he scolded the disciple and told him something in a whisper. Then he went to the king and addressed him, O wisest of kings, who is greater, the Guru or the disciple? Of course, the Guru, no doubt about it. Why do you ask? Then put me to the stake first, put my disciple to death after me. So, as the Guru met his disciple, he scolded him because he did not obey him and stayed back. He whispered something in his ears. The Guru tried to trap the king in his words. He asked him who was greater between a Guru and his disciple. The king replied that of course the Guru was greater. The Guru said that for this reason the king must execute him before executing his disciple. When disciple heard his Guru's words, he started shouting that he wanted to die. The Guru and the disciple now got into a fight about who should go first. The king was puzzled by this behavior. He asked the Guru, "Why do you want to die?" "We chose him because we needed a fat man for the stake." "You should not ask me such question. Put me to death first," replied the Guru. "Why, there is some mystery here. As a wise man, you must make me understand." So, in this part of the text, we read that the Guru refused to, sorry, when the Guru and disciples started arguing that who would die first, the king got confused. He asked the Guru that why did he want to die. They had caught the disciple because he was fat, and they wanted a fat man who could be executed with the stake. The Guru refused to reply. He said that he wanted to die before his disciple died. The king felt that there was some mystery behind it. The Guru wanted to die before his disciple and was so eager to die. There must be some reason behind it. "Will you promise to put me to death if I tell you?" asked the Guru. So the Guru asked the king to promise him that he would execute him first if he told him the secret about why he wanted to be executed first. The king gave his seldom word. The Guru took him aside out of the servants' earshot and whispered to him, "Do not know why we want to die right now. The two of us, we have been all over the world, but we have never found a city like this or a king like you. That stake is the stake of the God of justice. It's new, it has never had criminal on it. Whoever dies on it first will be reborn as the king of this country, and whoever goes next will be the future minister of this country. We are sick of our ascetic life. It would be nice to enjoy ourselves as king and minister for a while. Now keep your word, my lord. Put us to death. Me first, remember." So, in this part of the story, we read that the king promised that he would execute the Guru first. Then the Guru took the king aside and slowly told him that they had roamed around the whole world but had not seen a city and a king like him. He added that the stake which they would use to kill the disciple was the stake of justice. As it was new, it had not killed any criminal. Further, he said that the one who would die first on the stake would be reborn as the king of the kingdom. By telling all this, he is trying to trap the king. The one who would die next would be reborn as the minister of the kingdom. The Guru added that he was tired of the life of a sannyasi. He and his disciple wanted to live the life of a king and minister, so he says that the king execute him first so that he is reborn as a king, and after him his disciple be executed so that he is reborn as a minister. Now let's see what is there in the next part. The king was now Thrown into deep thought, he didn't want to lose the kingdom to someone else in the next round of life. He needed time, so he ordered the execution postponed to the next day and talked in secret with his minister. It's not right for us to give over the kingdom to others in the next life. Let's go on the stake ourselves and we will be reborn as king and minister again. So, sorry. Holy men do not tell lies, he said, and minister agreed. After listening to the Guru, the king was in deep thought. He did not want that in the next life his kingdom be snatched away from him. He discussed this with his minister in secret. The king told his minister that he did not want that in the next life his kingdom be taken away. He added that the person was a holy man and holy men did not speak lies. He says that they should die first so that they are reborn as king and minister of the kingdom. That night, the king and his minister went secretly to the prison. Sorry. So he told the executioners, we will send the criminals tonight. When the first man comes to you, put him to death first. Then do the same to the second man. Those are my orders. Don't make any mistake. So the king told his executioners that he would send the criminals at night. Firstly, they should execute the person who came first and then execute the second person. They should be careful and not make any mistake. That night, the king and his minister went secretly to the prison, released the Guru and the disciple, disguised themselves as the two, and as arranged beforehand with loyal servants, were taken to the stake and promptly executed. At that night, the king and his minister went to the prison where the Guru and disciple were kept. They bore the clothes of the Guru and his disciple so that they resembled them. As it was told to the servants, they came and took them along and put them into the stake for execution. In this way, with his intelligence, the Guru was able to execute his foolish king and his minister. Now, let's see the next part of the text. When the bodies were taken down to be thrown to crows and vultures, the people panicked. Panicked means they were frightened. They saw before them the dead bodies of the king and the minister. The city was in confusion. So when the dead bodies of king and his minister were taken away to be thrown, the people trembled to see the dead bodies of their king and his minister. All night they mourned and discussed the future of the kingdom. Some people certainly thought of the Guru and the disciple and caught up with them as they were preparing to leave town unnoticed. We people need a king and a minister, said someone. Others agreed. They begged the Guru and the disciple to be their king and their minister. It did not take many arguments to persuade the disciple. What it took longer to persuade the Guru. They finally agreed to rule the kingdom of the foolish king and the silly minister on the condition that they could change all the old laws. From then on, night would again be night and day would again be day, and you could get nothing for Dudu. It became like any other place. So, in this part of the text, we read that everyone in the kingdom was mourning the death of their king and his minister. In the morning, some people thought of the Guru and his disciple and felt that they should go to them. As the Guru and his disciple were planning to leave the kingdom, the people stopped them. The people of the kingdom thought that they needed a king and a minister, and so they requested the guru and his disciple to be the new king and minister of the kingdom. The disciple agreed quickly, but it took some time to make the guru agree upon this. So the guru agreed to be the king of the kingdom, but on the condition that from then everyone would work in the day and sleep at night. Also, the cost of things would vary and not be one would do for anything, as was the system earlier. It would be like any other place where everything had different rates. Finally, the guru converted the kingdom of fools into the normal kingdom. So, this was the story. Do complete the questions and answers of the exercises, and you have to complete the summary. This is homework. That's all for today. Thank you. Have a nice day.